This is Art Trujillo, the writer of Work of Art. And this is my first attempt at actually reading one of my columns. The one I've chosen for today is Loving Ludwig van. Here goes. A number of years ago, I wrote about holding a neighborhood car wash on our property. That was a few years before water became a luxury, and when the Trujillo family was younger, more energetic, and willing to undergo a dousing or several, when one of us directed more water toward the friends and family than to our respective cars. We had 2 cars for the family. One of our 3 sons was old enough to have his own car, clunkers though they might have been, and we invited a couple of boys' friends to the washerama. At the time, what I wrote involved a neighbor, Eddie, who has since passed away, and it must have been worthwhile as we all competed over what else? The music to be played as we worked to make our cars immaculate. Because my hose was connected to the most powerful hydrant, I was able to make my hose squirt a bit harder and teach those little squirts a lesson. But we needed some kind of order. Accordingly, we agreed it would be more efficient for all of us to attack in the sense of cleaning the cars one at a time, complete the job, and go on to the next car. I had recently purchased a complete set of Beethoven's 9 symphonies marketed by a group called Deutsche Grammophon. These were cassette tapes, not the more modern CDs, or the kinds that we play somehow with no visible technology. All that reminded me of the stages our music appreciation went through. My dad, J.D., a music lover of the first water, must have put a bug in our ears. Quite often, we'd espy him walking home from work with a collection of 78 records tucked under his arm. It may have seemed as if Dad paid a fortune for the collection, but please note that the 78 designation was actually the speed at which the records played. Years later came the 33s, which in those days turned on a phonograph. And years later, after the 33s arrived, it meant that the record spun only 33 times a fraction of a minute. All the time, I thought the 78 or 33 and the third designations referred to the price of each disc. To us, that was high tech. And by the time cassette tapes came around, we all reveled over the fact that the discs were compact and we didn't worry much about breakage or scratchage. Now, here's where Eddie came in. Though he didn't have a car in his washerama of the decades, but he stuck around for the entertainment. True, he joined us in dousing one another with garden hoses, but he also stayed around for the musical entertainment. Would you believe it took several hours to get through the entire Ludwig van collection? Eddie invited me to come over any time to play Beethoven, which he pronounced Beethoven. Meanwhile, my son's friends balked a bit as they asked, "Why don't you play music we like?" The outcome of the washerama was that Eddie became a convert. For the rest of his years, he'd often remind me of his exhilaration at taking in hours of classical music. He said he held that addiction to Beethoven for the rest of his life, and regrettably, the rest of his life was not very long. He died young. As with much technology, things we usually take on different phases. For example, the virtually worthless bulky 8-track tapes soon faded. Then they were replaced by tiny speakers we can insert in our ears. True, the earbuds produced a fine modulated sound, but what happened to the opportunity to share? As I rode my bicycle overdosing on something by Mozart, I would pity neighbors I saw on foot, those unfortunate souls who weren't able to listen to Brahms or Bach up close and personal. I wished I could have shared with them, but not everyone can win at this game. Well, during a recent Christmas, two of my sons gifted me with something musical. I opened the present after several steps. You see, to my sons, a gift isn't worth opening unless the recipient needs to spend most of his retirement simply unwrapping it. The original package was large, and what did I find after I opened the outside box? Yes, another box. The plot finally unraveled by the time I got to the seventh box, about the size of something we order at Burger King. Inside was a device that talks to us and listens as well. I'd never seen an Alexa, a unit that plays virtually anything we ask it. Alexa, and there are doubtless many devices called something else that play music on demand, didn't disappoint. If it's fed the correct information, the device will not only play whatever we request, but announce the name of the tune as well. Once I forgot to greet Alexa with her true name and got silence until one of my sons assisted me. It took a while to instruct Alexa on how to play the entire score of Les Miserables, for example, and that forced me to keep chatting with a contraption to keep the music flowing. Otherwise, I would get silence.